Happy New Year, everyone. Y'all feeling good this year? Come on, everyone have a good break? I love it. Anyone travel over the break? Just curious. Anyone go anywhere? Awesome. Welcome back. Glad you're home. We did not go anywhere this year. It was nice. It was really good just to be at home and be with family. If we haven't met, by the way, my name is Gerald. I have the privilege of serving as the senior pastor here at Home Church, and we're just so glad you're here. You could have been anywhere in the world today, and you chose to be here at Home Church, and I just believe that you're not here by mistake, that God has you here for a reason, and that he wants to speak to you today. I do want you to know some things about our house, though. This is not a quiet room. I don't want to have a monologue. I'd like to have a dialogue with you, okay? And so there's going to be some moments I'm going to ask you to answer some questions. I might ask you to talk back to me. I might not ask you, and you can just do it anyway, okay? It is not rude to interrupt in this environment. So if something's good, you can just say, come on. If you don't know what to say, you can give me a little Christian moo. It sounds like this. I love it. Anyone bring a copy of the scriptures with them today, by the way? Anyone bring a copy of the scriptures? Awesome. I love that. If you do not own a Bible, there's some on the table in the back. We'd love for you to grab one and keep one. That's our gift to you. We say this often at Home Church. This is not just a book that we read. This is a book that it reads us. And so today, we're going to be jumping into the scriptures. If you have a Bible, you can turn to Matthew chapter 1. Matthew chapter 1, that's where we're going to jump in. It's a new year. And whether you're a New Year's resolution person or not, what I know is true for most of us in the room is that as you think about a new year, as you think about a new season, as you think about a new rhythm for this year, there's some things that you want to get right. Some places that you want to get it right that maybe you didn't get it right last year. Like maybe this year you just want to start eating right. Maybe you want to eat some things a little bit differently. Maybe you want to get your body right this year. Maybe you have that six-pack before summer goal that you've had every year for the last 10, 20 years, Maybe this year you want to get it right as a husband or get it right as a wife. Or maybe this year the goal is to get it right as a parent. Maybe you're in the room and you want to get dating right this year. You're like, I've tried, but this is the year that we're going to get it right. Maybe you want to get friendships right this year. Maybe you're like Kanye West, and this is the year that you're like, I'm going to get my money right. Anyone remember? Okay, I'm the only one who knows that song. Thank you. Nah, 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 nah. Okay, anyway. Sorry, that's my flesh coming out, right? I don't know what it is for you, but we all have some areas that we want to get it right. Actually, let's just do this, participation. Why don't you turn to the person next to you, tell them one thing you hope to get right in 2026. One thing you hope to get right in 2026. Turn to the person next to you, tell them that right now. Go ahead. I love it. All right, it sounds like we got some good answers happening. Someone from this section, one thing you hope to get right this year. Just yell it out at me. One thing. Someone right here, this section, I'm looking at y'all. Y'all are looking at me. What do you want to get right this year? Diet. Want to get diet right this year. That's good. Someone in this section, what do you want to get right this year? Say it again. Six-pack. Anyone else trying to get a six-pack this year? Anyone have kids and you're like, I gave up on that. It's never happening again. I love it. Someone in this section, what do you want to get right this year? Exercise. Come on, anyone else trying to get right with their exercise this year? Yeah, me too. Someone in this section over here, what do you want to get right this year? Say it again. Sleep. Someone said adulting. I love that. That's so good. When you get it right, come let me know so I can figure it out too, right? We all have some things we want to get right this year. For me, every year, I was just telling Frank this on the front row, every year at the end of the year, I look at Kylie and I'm like, there's something in our house that we have to get right. This year I was a little bit of an overachiever, and so we spent every day from Christmas Day all the way up until New Year's Day redoing every single room in our house. Every single room, right? Redid the playroom, redid the porch, redid the living room, the diner, like every single room in our house had to get redone. I just wanted our house to be right as we started a new year. We all have some things that we want to get right. And I don't know what it is for you, but what I do know is that if you're sitting in the room, I'd be willing to bet that one of the things on your list that you want to get right this year is your relationship with God. You want to get that right. You want to grow in your relationship with him. You want to know him more deeply. You want to follow him better. You want to follow Jesus well. Or you want to get right with your relationship with God because you don't have one yet. Or you've been disconnected from one for a long time. That all of us have something in our life that we want to get right. And if our relationship with God is something that we want to get right, then we have to figure out a plan in order to do it. Like, how do we get right with God? Interestingly enough, the scripture actually has a word for that idea, and it's righteousness. The idea of righteousness is a right standing with God. It's standing rightly before him. How do we get right with God. That's what we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks. Now, I'm really excited about this series, The Way of the Righteous, not just because we're going to be talking about how to get right with God, but also the way that we're going to be doing it. For this whole series, we're going to be in the book of Matthew, but not just for this series, actually for the entirety of the year, we're going to be in the book of Matthew. And our Bible studies will be in Matthew. On our Sunday mornings, we're going to be in Matthew. And by the end of this year, our hope and prayer is that you would be able to look at the book of Matthew and go, I know and understand that book, and God has spoken to me through it. And so Sunday mornings won't be enough to do that. A weekly Bible study won't be enough to do that. And so we've also created a resource that starting next week, we're going to be giving out every week for free in the month of January. This is our first ever home church guided journey through the scriptures of Matthew. It's awesome. So in this, you're going to have a Sunday guide that's going to have the scripture for that Sunday. It's going to have space for you to take notes. You're going to have daily devotion, so it'll give you some scripture to read and then a kind of a plan in order to do some devotional time with that. You're going to find pictures throughout the years of our church. And at the end of every series, some reflection questions for you to really wrestle with the things that God is teaching you. So starting next week, this will be available for free for everyone in the room. This is a proof copy. It doesn't have the spine even done yet, and the glue is kind of loose on this, but I figured if somebody was here for the first time, I'd just give this away as a gift to someone. You get to start early. Anyone in the room, this is your first time ever at home church? Anyone? First time? Where? Oh, come on, somebody. I love that. Here you go. This is for you. Enjoy. For everyone else, I don't want you to get behind, and so we have a digital version of week 1 that if you scan the QR code behind me, and we'll put it up at the end of service as well, you can scan that, and then you can do week 1 now, and then starting next week, you'll have your physical book in order to do that. So we'll be in the Gospel of Matthew for the entirety of the year. We'll be tracking through different series, but all in the same book of the Bible. Anyone else excited about that this year? I am too. I love it. So with that said, Matthew chapter 1. Starting in, this is going to blow your mind, verse 1. Here we go. This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. So Matthew, who was one of Jesus' disciples, one of his 12, was likely a tax collector. Would have been hated by his community, would have been kind of a traitor working for the Roman government, collecting taxes from his own people. And tax collectors had a reputation for not only taking taxes for Rome, but that they would increase the tax in order to get rich on the back of their own family and friends. And so tax collectors usually were not liked, usually were not very respected, but were incredibly wealthy. And they were really good at keeping records. They would keep records of all of the finances, all of the bookkeeping, all of the things that they were responsible for keeping up with for Rome. So you have Matthew, also known as Levi, who's called by Jesus to be one of his followers, to be one of his 12. And some scholars believe that along the way of his journey with Jesus, as he's walking with him as a disciple, that he's actually intentionally taking notes along the way, keeping good records of who Jesus is and what he's done. And Matthew starts his account of the life of Jesus, one of the 4 accounts of the life of Jesus. He starts his account with the genealogy of Jesus. And at the beginning, he makes 3 important statements about Jesus. He says, this is the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah. That word Messiah means the anointed one. The people of Israel had been waiting for years for a Messiah, an anointed one, to come. This Messiah was supposed to establish a kingdom for Israel, was to set them free from their oppressors, was to allow them to have prosperity and rule and reign forever. This Messiah they had been waiting to come would be their liberator, their savior, their hope. And Matthew says, I want you to know that Jesus is that Messiah. He is the anointed one. He is the long-awaited king. He is the one who has come to save and liberate your people. He says this is the genealogy of the Messiah, the son of David and the son of Abraham. Now, we're going to get back to those terms a little bit later towards the end of our message, but I do just want to highlight really quickly when it says the son of David and the son of Abraham, it does not mean like the literal son of David and the literal son of Abraham. What Matthew is trying to say is that Jesus is a descendant of David and is a descendant of Abraham, that he comes from these 2 lines. And then he's going to go on to prove it. Now this, what we're going to read next, is riveting. Get ready. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, Judah the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar, Perez the father of Hezron, Hezron the father of Ram, Ram the father of Amminadab, Amminadab the father of Nahshon, Nahshon the father of, is that Salmon or Salmon? How do y'all say that? Solomon. Solomon, the father of Boaz. Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed, father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. David, the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Solomon, the father of Rehoboam. Rehoboam, the father of Abijah. Abijah, the father of Asa. Asa, the father of Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat, the father of Jehoram. Jehoram, the father of Uzziah. Uzziah, the father of Jotham. Jotham, the father of Ahaz. Ahaz, the father of Hezekiah. Hezekiah, the father of Manasseh. Manasseh, the father of Amon. Amon, the father of Josiah. Josiah, the father of Jeconiah. Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the exile to Babylon. After the exile to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel, Shealtiel the father of Zerubbabel, Zerubbabel the father of Abihud, Abihud the father of Eliakim, Eliakim the father of Azor, Azor the father of Zodak, Zodak the father of Achim, Achim the father of Elihud, Elihud the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, and Mary the mother of Jesus, who was called the Messiah. Thus, there were 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the exile to Babylon, and 14 from the exile to the Messiah. Just a little side note, if you ever have to read a genealogy in front of a bunch of people, just act like you know the names and you're right, and people will think you're right. Can we be honest in the room? Most of us see a genealogy like that, and we just skim over it or we skip it, don't we? We're like, all of these names, like, what's the point? Most of these people, I don't even know who they are. And even if you research them, there's not a lot for a lot of the people. It's like, who is this person? We don't know anything about them. There's one line about them somewhere in the Bible. Or for a lot of them, we don't even know how to say their name. And so we're looking at this list and we're like, what the point is that Jesus came. Why do I need to read all of this? I don't need all of that information in order to get to that point. Y'all want to know one of my biggest pet peeves? Is Kylie and I have completely different tastes in shows. My wife and I love completely different types of TV shows. She's more of like a Hallmark kind of girl. You know, she wants to watch the Christmas movie that is like the same Christmas movie 100 times just in a different city, you know, where it's like this guy hates that girl and then all of a sudden she lives on like a small little farm and they hate each other because he's the big corporate guy, and then they start hanging out and they fall in love and they get married at the end. I'm like, why are you watching this? They're all the same. For me, though, I like shows that are a little bit more suspenseful, that kind of build on each other. There's a storyline. A lot of times they're a little bit too dark for Kylie. She's like, if anyone is getting shot or stabbed, I'm not watching it, you know? And so I'll watch something that's a little bit heavier, and she likes to watch these kind of cheesy movies, but every now and then there's these moments where I'm like sitting and I'm watching a show, and she'll be watching behind me, or she's in the kitchen working on something, and she starts hearing the show, and she gets interested, and she kind of gets sucked into the moment, and she'll come downstairs, and she'll sit next to me on the couch, and she'll start watching, but I know what she's doing. She's getting ready to do the thing that drives me more crazy than anything else in the world. She looks at me, and she'll start asking me questions. So who is this person? And what do they do? And why do they not like each other? And in the like rare moments that I decide to be a good husband, I like try to start explaining it to her, but here's what I know and here's what she knows. It doesn't matter how much explaining that I give her, she's not going to understand the show. Why? She's missed all the backstory. She's missed the setup. She's missed the history. And this moment in the show is significant because of all the other episodes that led up to this moment. If she does not know the backstory, if she does not know the setup, if she does not know the history, she cannot fully understand or, watch this, appreciate the show. Matthew starts his story of the life of Jesus with a genealogy because he does not want you to miss the backstory. He does not want you to miss the setup. He doesn't want you to miss the history. He doesn't want you to get so fixated on the new thing that God is doing that you don't realize that it's connected to the old thing that God has already done. Notice, friends, he does not start the story of Jesus with once upon a time in a faraway land. He starts the story not as a myth, because it's not. Not as a fable that's meant to take an idea from that makes you a better person, because it's not. Not as some fairy tale that just stirs your imagination for a moment, because it's not. He starts it with a genealogy because this is a real story of a real man named Jesus from Nazareth who has a real family, who comes from a real lineage, and who Matthew says is really the Messiah. He starts with the genealogy because he wants to root the story of Jesus in history. Now, what's fascinating is that what Matthew does with this genealogy is pretty incredible. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually. Because what he's giving us at the same time are three different types of history simultaneously. The first type of history he's giving us is a personal history. Please don't miss this. Every person in the genealogy of Jesus has a story. And the problem with skipping over the genealogy is that you're actually missing the stories of each of the people who were a part of the story of the coming of Jesus. Let's just look at a couple. You have Jacob, who's in the story, right? Anyone remember the story of Jacob, twin brother Esau? Jacob's name means heel grabber because he's trying to grab Esau's heel to keep him from getting out first. Why? Because the firstborn would get a birthright. They'd get double the inheritance of any other sibling in the family. And so here you have Jacob, who is the twin brother of Esau. Esau is born first, so he has a double inheritance, but Jacob cannot deal with this. He's ambitious. And so Jacob comes up with this plan that while Esau is out hunting, that he comes back hungry, and Jacob trades him his birthright for a bowl of stew. Terrible trade, by the way. It's like, you're hungry, eat now, and trade all of your glory and riches later. Wasn't in my notes, but just a side note. For some of us, the biggest challenge for your life this year will not be that you got offered something bad. It's that you got offered something good that was good for the moment and made you trade something better for the long term. So here you have Jacob who tricks his brother out of his birthright, and then as his father is laying on his deathbed, he dresses up as his brother because his brother was hairy and he was not. And so there's this whole weird story where his brother thinks it's him because of the hair on him, and he blesses Jacob. Jacob takes his brother's blessing and is prideful, he's ambitious, he's stubborn. So stubborn, in fact, that he finds himself in this moment where he's wrestling literally with God. And God humbles him and breaks his hip, and he then walks with a limp for the rest of his life. You have this story of Jacob that if you just skip over the genealogy, you miss. Now, why does that matter? Well, Jacob is prideful and ambitious. His ambition leads him to do things and become a person that he never intended to be. It's just what happens. He's a human with too much ambition. And I'm just curious, have you ever let your ambition get the best of you? Have you ever found yourself in a position where God had to and needed to humble you? That's Jacob's story. In the same lineage, we have the story of a man named Manasseh, who's known as the most wicked and evil king in all of Israel's history. He led the people into idolatry. He practiced witchcraft. He sacrificed his own son in fire. God calls him to change, and literally with a message from God, he still refuses to do anything different. He's then captured by the Assyrians, and he hits rock bottom, and as he's in exile, he realizes, God, I should actually listen to him and trust him and believe in him and worship him. And so he, in exile, turns his mind and his heart and repents and starts to follow God, and then he gets out of exile, gets back to Israel. He tries to re-implement the ways of worship to God, but it's too late. The people are so locked into this idol worship that they're unwilling to change. This is Manasseh's story, known as the most evil king to ever exist. And I just wonder if at any point in your life you've done something that had a negative impact on other people and there's nothing you can do to go back and change it. And you regret it still. That your impact on their life led them somewhere to do something or go somewhere or become someone that you never intended to be a part of their story or yours. Yes, you have Solomon, David's son, David, the most respected and loved king in all of Israel. His father dies, and Solomon takes the throne, and God comes to Solomon and says, hey, you can have anything you want. What's one thing you want? Solomon says the best thing that anyone could ever say, hey, God, would you give me a discerning heart to know what is right and wrong? I'm just a child. How am I supposed to lead all these people? Would you give your servant wisdom? And he receives wisdom from God. And he writes the book of Proverbs, laying out that wisdom for us. And yet, here we have Solomon, who has 700 wives, 300 concubines, and allows the women that he's entertaining to lead him into practicing idol worship as well. And I just wonder if you've ever had the wisdom to know the right thing to do, but you chose not to do it anyway, and it hurt you, and you had consequences. Oh, you see the stories that are in this genealogy are stories of real people with real problems, with real heartache, with real failure. These are the stories that are included in the lineage of Jesus, and I love this. Matthew does not avoid the mess. He He doesn't fill the lineage with all of the people who got it right. He goes, no. I just want to be real about the people that we're dealing with. These are broken and messed up people. Because hear me, this is not just a genealogy about a group of people who existed at one point. This is not just a birth narrative. This is a genealogy of Matthew preaching grace through a genealogy. Why? Because the truth is you have a story too. You have successes and failures. You have moments where you were too ambitious, where you lied, where you cheated, where you were unfaithful, where you gave into the addiction, where you didn't keep your word, where you were unwise with your finances, where you broke promises. You have shortcomings, you have a reputation, you have a past, and you have sin of your own. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how long your streak has been, that struggle is still a part of your story. It doesn't matter how many years it's been since that event, that moment is still a part of your life. It does not matter if you move to another place, your story is still your story and you cannot run away from it. But the good news of the genealogy of Jesus is this: you don't have to run away from it. You don't have to clean it up. You don't have to hide. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to always make the right decisions. You don't have to have all the right answers. You don't have to always be perfect, because friends, God can and will work through your story just as it is. He's not afraid of your mess. No, he brings grace to it. John Calvin says it this way. He says, "It is not without reason that Matthew reckons up wicked men among the ancestors of Christ, for he intended to show that Christ was appointed by God to restore the fallen." Hear me, this is not just a genealogy of personal history, of failures and success. This is a genealogy of grace, because grace does not deny the mess of your story, it redeems it. The church I grew up in would say it like this: he'll take your mess and turn it into a message. Come on, somebody. He'll take your test and turn it into a testimony. Come on, somebody. He will take your trial and turn it into a triumph. You better watch out now. God is not afraid of your mess. He redeems it. And if Jesus can come through messy and broken people like that, then God can bring righteousness out of messy and broken people like us. He can redeem, heal, correct, and make right the broken parts of your story. Now, we could stop there. But Matthew isn't just wanting us to see a personal history. He's also wanting us to see a family history here. You see, Matthew does something really interesting in his genealogy, something that most people around his time would not do. Matthew includes the names of women in his genealogy. There are 4 women who are mentioned, 5 actually, including Ruth, but 4 women that I want to highlight just for a moment that Matthew includes in the genealogy. Now, there's 2 reasons why he probably would have done this. One is Matthew includes the names of women in the genealogy of Jesus because, hear me, in a patriarchal society that said women were property and had no value, the gospel says women have value and dignity, and they are not second-class citizens. Their names get included just like the men do. That's one. But the second reason that he would have included the names of these women in this genealogy is because he's trying to intentionally draw our attention to the stories of 3 different families. You have Solomon and Rahab, who were the parents of Boaz. You have Judah and Tamar, who are the parents of Perez and Zerah. And you have David and Uriah's wife, Bathsheba, who isn't even mentioned by name because the story's so scandalous, who are the parents of Solomon. 3 stories that are incredibly messy, 3 very messy families. You have Rahab, who's a prostitute from Canaan, who, as Israel is prepared to take the promised land, they send in spies, and Rahab hides the spies in her house. When questioned about it, she lies to the men and she sends them back, tells them to hide in the hills for 3 days. Israel would then come in and take over the entire country, killing everyone, demolishing the whole town except for Rahab and her family. And then Rahab would marry into the Israelites and become a part of their family. And her and Solomon would have a son named Boaz. You have this woman who has a sketchy reputation. She's a prostitute, who betrays her own country, who hides the spies and lies about it. And yet their family is included in the lineage of Jesus. Not only do you have Rahab, you have the story of Judah and Tamar. And y'all, this is like the wildest story in the Bible. Anyone know this story, by the way? Wild, right? Judah has a daughter-in-law named Tamar. She's married to his oldest son. His oldest son is so wicked that God just kills him on the spot. The Levite law is that another sibling would marry the wife so that she wouldn't be left alone and so that the bloodline would continue. And so when the oldest son is killed, the next son, middle son, marries Tamar, and he refuses to get her pregnant. I'm not going to share the details, it's a little graphic, but he refuses to get her pregnant, and so he dies. And now we get to the third son, and Judah's like, hey, listen, we're not doing this. The youngest son, he says, you go off somewhere, and when he gets older, I'll have him come and marry you, but he has no real intention of having the younger son marry Tamar. And so he sends Tamar out on her own, does not take care of her, does not provide for her the way that their family should have. And Tamar is now alone, isolated, and childless. Her life does not look anything like the way that she had pictured. Desperation, she turns to this scheme where she decides that she's going to dress herself up as a prostitute. And then Judah comes into town and he sees this prostitute and he decides that he wants to sleep with her. So now the father is sleeping with his daughter-in-law, gets her pregnant, and promises to pay her with a young goat. Now, he doesn't know that she's pregnant at the time. But Tamar, in wisdom, goes, hey, I know you said you were going to pay me with this young goat, but you don't have the goat here, so will you give me your ring that signifies who you are and your staff? It's basically like, give me your ID so I can make sure you pay me. Judah leaves town, sends the goat, they can't find her. Then rumor comes to Judah that his daughter-in-law has become a prostitute and is now pregnant, and he says, you know what we should do? Let's burn her to death. I know, wild, right? So they bring her out to burn her, and she goes, well, tell Judah I'm pregnant with the man whose ring and staff this is, and sends the ring and staff. He's like, oh, that's my baby. It spares her life. It's like an episode of Maury in the Bible. This is insane, you know? I mean, what a messy story. And yet Matthew says that this story is in the lineage of Jesus. And then you have David and Bathsheba, a king, power, who's supposed to be out at war. But instead he is at home and he sees a woman bathing on the rooftop and he sends people to go and have her come to his house. We don't know the details of what happens here. Maybe this is consensual, maybe it's forced. Intercourse occurs with this woman who he knows is married. And not just married to anyone, but married to one of his lead soldiers. She ends up pregnant, and rather than dealing with the sin and the brokenness that he has caused, he instead sends her husband Uriah out to the front lines, has him killed, and then marries her. Tries to cover it up, and it takes his best friend Nathan coming to him and going, bro, what are you doing? Before he feels remorse. And there's consequence that enters their story. This is the story that's included in the lineage of Jesus. So in these families, you have prostitution, neglect, deception, lust, adultery, murder. I mean, come on, if you think your family is jacked up, look at the lineage of Jesus. But then you get to Joseph and Mary. And you read the account of their story, and it's filled with purity and obedience and trust and faithfulness. And are Joseph and Mary sinless? No, absolutely not. But as far as we know, there is no prostitution, there's no neglect, there's no deception, there's no lust, there's no adultery, there's no murder in their story. You see, God can not only bring righteousness through broken people, but he can bring righteousness out of broken families. I don't know what your story is. I don't know how you grew up. Maybe you grew up in a family that's full of addiction and gambling and alcoholism and infidelity and divorce and gossip and unbelieving and anger. I don't know what type of family you grew up in, but what I do know is you can't change the family that you were born into, and you cannot change what that family has passed on to you. But just because it was passed on to you doesn't mean that it has to continue with you. Just because your grandfather did it and your father did it doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because your grandmother did it and your mother did it doesn't mean that it has to be your story. I was sitting by the fire over the break with a couple of guys from church, and one of the guys, we were talking just about family and life and different dynamics, and I asked him, like, hey, what's your family like? And he's like, oh, dude, my dad is like the absolute best. Which like kind of shocked me, you know, because it's pretty rare to sit with someone and they're like, my dad is awesome. Like, he follows Jesus, he raised us right, he's a leader, he's done great with business, like he's taught me everything I know. Everything that I want to be, I look at my dad and I go, I want to be that. And he goes, the wildest part of the story though is that my grandfather is pretty racist. And our family is like 90% sure that our grandfather was in the Klan. And he goes, but I had no idea until my grandfather passed away that was even part of his story. That's who he was. He said, because my dad made a decision that race was not going to be an issue in his family. His dad had something passed on to him, and he goes, it ends with me. And now here his son is sitting at the fire with his black pastor, leading an organization in the inner city to help minority students get a leg up. And the whole time we're sitting there, we've moved on to like 17 different conversations. We're there till like 1 a.m. But the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world do you go from a grandfather in the KKK to leading an organization in the inner city in order to serve and reach minorities? How in the world does that happen? Oh, there's a father in the middle of the story. He goes, just because it was passed on to me doesn't mean it continues with me. It ends with me. Family, can I just tell you, you can declare Joshua 24 over your own life. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we are staying together. As for me and my house, addiction will not have the final word. As for me and my house, we are going to use our words to build people up, not tear people down. As for me and my house, Jesus is going to be the center. The story that you were handed does not have to be the story you continue. So this is not just a story of personal history. This is a story of family history. You can't determine the family you're born into, but you can determine the family that you build. Genealogy is a lot more interesting than we thought, isn't it? So Matthew gives us a personal history, a family history, but he also gives us a theological history. And band, you can get ready to come up in just a minute, but the theological history is fascinating. Matthew, at the beginning and end of this genealogy, before he gives us this list of 46 names, he does something pretty incredible. He says this is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah. Okay, so we looked at that. Who is the son of David and the son of Abraham. Okay, this is important. Before he gets through the list of names, he tells us that Jesus is the son of David and the son of Abraham. Why? Because David and Abraham are not just people, they represent promises. 2 promises that God had made to Israel. To David, he said, I will establish through your son a kingdom that will never end, a throne that will be set on forever and ever and ever. I will bring you liberation and freedom and prosperity, and it will come through your lineage, David. And to Abraham, he says, I will bless all of the world through you. From your seed, all of the world will be blessed. So knowing that Abraham and David had been given these 2 promises, Matthew gives us a theological history that is mind-blowing what he does. Notice, he starts the genealogy. I don't know if anyone's seen this before. He starts the genealogy with Abraham. Okay, wait, what? Let's go back to Genesis. Who's the first person that we know of in Genesis? Adam. So why does Matthew start the genealogy with Abraham and not Adam? Here's what's even crazier. This word genealogy right here is actually the same word that we have for, watch this, Genesis. So the genealogy is intended to take you back to Genesis and to make you realize, wait a minute, this story isn't starting with Adam, it's starting with Abraham. Why? Because the story of Adam and Eve is the story of humanity falling short of God's standards, sinning, and sin now entering into the world. The beginning of our story is that we have parents who rebelled and disobeyed against God, and their sin has been passed on to us. But friends, hear me. That is the beginning of our story, not the beginning of Jesus' story. Because Jesus is God. He is the beginning. So before Adam and Eve was, he was. The story doesn't start with Adam and Eve for Jesus. The story starts with himself. So why start with Abraham instead of Adam? Because the promise that God would bless all people is a picture of God's faithfulness. And Jesus is the fulfillment of the faithfulness of God to you and to me. Hear me. Jesus does not come from brokenness. He comes through brokenness and is broken for us in order to be a blessing to us. He comes through sin. He comes through broken families. He comes through broken people. But he does not come from it because he's God. And our God is holy and perfect and faithful and good. And then he ends the genealogy with this. I love this. He says, there were, y'all help me with this, how many generations? 14 generations from who? Abraham to David. And then there were what? 14 generations from David to the exile. And then there were 14 from the exile to the Messiah. Okay, anytime you see repetition in Scripture, it should be a flashlight that goes, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Something important here is happening. 14, 14, 14. Now, in our American culture, this won't mean a lot, but in Jewish culture, numbers are incredibly important. They're significant and they have meaning. So much so that the Hebrew alphabet actually has a number assigned to every letter of the alphabet. Now, in ancient Hebrew, you would not include vowels in names, okay? So if you were spelling the name David, you would spell it D-V-D. I was gonna make a Blockbuster joke there, and I decided not to. DVD. D, watch this, equals 4. V equals 6. D equals what? 4. What's 4 plus 6 plus 4? 14. What's the promise that God made to David? That he would have an heir who would establish a kingdom. Not an earthly kingdom that's imperfect and falls short. Not an earthly kingdom that lasts for a short period of time. No, that he would establish a kingdom that would last forever, meaning the kingdom would be perfect and the king would be perfect as well. You know what else is interesting? The number 3 in Jewish culture equals perfection. So what is Matthew telling us? Oh, he's going, oh, Jesus is coming. And he's come as the perfect king, the perfect David, the one who will establish a kingdom forever and ever and ever. You see, if we're just reading through Matthew 1, we just see a list of 46 names, but if we slow down and actually pay attention to the genealogy, this is the message we get. The perfect king has come through broken people and broken families to redeem a broken world. How? Our God would come in human flesh, in humility in the form of an infant, not to a palace, not to riches, but to a stable. He would be born humbly with nothing, live 33 perfect years on the planet Earth. He would heal, he would redeem, he would save. He would call people into the kingdom. And people would hate him for it. They would arrest him for crimes he didn't commit. They would beat him within inches of his life. They would mock him and spit on him, place a crown of thorns on his head. They would nail him to a cross where he would suffocate in the hot Israeli sun for hours. When thirsty, he would be offered vinegar to drink. And as they mocked him and hated him, as they shouted, "Crucify him," as they laughed at him on the cross, the words that would come from his mouth would be, "Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing." And he would die on that cross for you and for me. And there he would exchange our sin for his righteousness, our brokenness for his perfection, our peasantry for his kingdom, our less for his most. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says it like this: God made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Friends, this genealogy is a genealogy of a personal, familial, and theological history. A history that is good news for you and for me. Because through Jesus, righteousness has been made available to all of us. Through his blood, the world would be blessed. How do you have right standing with God? How do you get it right this year? How do you pursue and become righteous? Well, I think the answer is actually found in the story right after this. We don't have time, but I just want to point your attention to the title. It says, Joseph accepts Jesus as his own son. And guys, I don't think that's unintentional. That Matthew would give us this genealogy of grace, this story of God's faithfulness in spite of our brokenness, this story of a perfect king who would come through broken people and broken families to redeem a broken world, and the story that would immediately follow is that Joseph accepts him as his own. How do we become righteous? How do we get it right with God? Oh, well, we accept Jesus as our own. We invite him in. We trust him as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We invite him in to bring us his salvation, his healing, and his blessing. We submit to the King and we make him our King. Not just a king, but our King. Not just the Messiah, but our Messiah. Not just the Savior, but our Savior. You see, the way of the righteous does not start with effort. The way of the righteous starts with acceptance. And for many of us this year, the way you thought you would get right with God is that you would try harder. The way you thought you would get right with God is you'd have perfect church attendance this year. The way you thought you would get right with God is that you would read your devotional every single day. The way you thought you would get right with God is that you would listen to worship music in your car every day. The way you thought you would get right with God is that you would become more of a praying person this year. And I want to be very clear, all of those are good things and you should pursue those things. But you shouldn't pursue those things to gain righteousness. You should pursue those things because you've received righteousness. It is our response. It is not our effort. The way to become righteous is to accept, oh, Jesus, you're the answer. And Jesus, you're enough. So I trust you. My counselor, early on in counseling, she said a thing to me that I haven't been able to forget. I was really frustrated about some stuff with my biological family and things that I wanted to change in my own life and in the future of our family. And my counselor said, hey, I've noticed that as you're talking about this, like you're just tensing up, like your hands are getting tight, your shoulders are getting tight. And she goes, I just want to invite you, anytime we meet, to just open your hands in your lap. Just open your hands. Well, let's do that real quick. Could you just open your hands in front of you? She said, psychologically, it is impossible for you to be angry and for you to not be open from this posture. Because if you would sit like this, it allows you to receive the reality of your circumstance. Watch this. But it also allows you to let it go. What if this was the posture we took this year? Now, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to be better, and I'm going to get it right, and I'm going to be the best husband, the best wife, the best parent, and I'm going to manage our finances better, and I'm going to be at church every week, and I got it. No, what if it was, God, I can't do this on my own. I'm too broken. I'm too messed up. I can't figure this out. But I accept you as the answer. I accept you as the solution. I accept you as my healer. I accept you as my hope. I open my hands and I give you all that I am. I surrender all. I invite you to pray a prayer every day this year with your hands open each day. God, I give you, and you just fill in the blank. I give you my marriage. I can't figure it out. I give you our finances. I give you my anxiety. I give you my depression. I give you our family. I give you my history. I give you my life. And for some of you, that's the prayer you need to pray this year. God, I give you a life. You can have it all.
You're listening to audio from Home Church Roswell, located in Roswell, Georgia. For more information about this ministry or to give to this ministry, please visit homechurchroswell.com.